Lamborghini CEO of lifestyle, beauty, business. Rising to the top, rising to the top. World traveler, Lamborghini CEO of lifestyle, beauty, business. Let me take you for a ride in my Lamborghini. All these haters, they just wanna be. I'm from Michigan, 305 Miami. I'm the baddest that you ever seen. I be dancing, I be singing, I be chilling. You see, I'm the top of the world. It's just you and me. In my Lamborghini, Lamborghini. In my Lamborghini, Lamborghini.
Welcome back to my channel, guys. It's good to see you all. I hope everyone had a fabulous Mother's Day weekend. If you're here in the US, I know over in Europe, they actually celebrated earlier, as well as Africa, they celebrated earlier. And it's interesting because I'm going to be talking about Africa and Europe tonight, right? I have to tell you, if you are like someone that's into drama, or if you are looking for excitement and you're just like, oh, I don't know, I can't find anything online to watch, honey, tune into the news. Because when I tell you, reality is the best satire. And it's crazy because it actually, again, this is nonfiction. Like, you can't make this stuff up. But the things that have been going on as of late in the news, I'm telling you, since the beginning of the year, have just been like keeping me going. Okay. If ever I feel like I'm having a drab or down day or things are slow, honey, I just need to go to the news. And I will tell you, this weekend was one of those times that just picking up my phone, clicking on an app, and seeing drama, excitement too, in one respect. So first, I want to talk about someone I've talked about before. I haven't done a full show on him, and maybe I will come back and do a full, kind of history and show to give a lot more information than I will get into tonight. But that is Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso in Africa. Now, I've talked about that before, I think on one of my other podcasts and platforms. The fact that Mr. Ibrahim Traore, he is doing it. He is really rocking out. He actually became president of Burkina Faso in 2022. And in just like 3 short years, he actually has turned around the economy of that country. Again, we're not talking about a state. We're talking about a country, right? He's turned around the economy in that country. He has given or brought jobs. He actually has taken back the resources that were, in his opinion, being pillaged from particularly France. Since he took office and took over, he has been giving France the business, which is the other thing that I'm going to get into tonight, the other, little bit of drama. But he actually, again, made some really bold moves right away. As soon as he took office, he actually kicked them out of the country, essentially out of certain areas where they were doing mining and things like that for the resources, but they weren't, in his opinion, adequately paying the employees and the workers that were Burkina Faso, like residents and citizens, rightfully so. And then you had other businesses that were, over there from France that also they were doing work, but then sometimes they wouldn't hire the locals. They wouldn't hire anyone that was part of Burkina Faso. And that was an issue for him. And rightfully so, because it is his job as president to protect his country and to protect his people. And when I tell you, that really has proven to be something that the folks recognize. The people there love him. Like, they know that he is their guy and they are willing to go all out for him and do whatever it takes to protect him. Now, that in and of itself is a huge feat, because this man, this young man, he has had 18. He just had a recent attempt on his life. the 18th attempt on his life. Just last month, okay, there was a coup that got, kind of disassembled. It got disrupted. Okay. And don't let me get, started and preaching here. But I'm telling you, like the scripture says, the weapons, he didn't say the weapons wouldn't come. He said that they won't prosper against you. And this man is a true testament of that, because the weapons have been coming 18 times to be exact for him. 18 attempts on his life, right? And that's why I think, some people have wondered, like, why is he so private? Oh, how come he doesn't have his wife and kids out? Because he knows he's the one that signed up for this. He took this job, and he understands that the spotlight that he's getting, he understands that with some of the bold moves he's making, it could, again, the way that it's put him in danger, it could potentially put them in danger as well. So I don't know if we will see them in the spotlight in the near future. I think it's pretty smart of him. I think, whether it's him or people that's advising him, I think that he's doing the right thing as it relates to that. And again, last month showed to be true, because like I said, for the 18th time, they made an attempt on this man's life and tried to take him out of this world because of the changes and things that he's implementing. Now, I do have to tell you, I am starting to get a little bit, nervous or taking note, because I am seeing, again, some of the same plays from the playbook that were used for Gaddafi when, unfortunately, my country, the U.S., and I love, the U.S., I don't love everything that we do all the time or how we do things all of the time. But those that are in my age group, or that, were paying attention to politics and who don't have their head under a rock and aren't bamboozled and what have you, we know that the U.S. had Gaddafi taken out. At least that's my theory. I'm going to say allegedly, I guess, for the sake of being politically correct. Okay. So if I have to be politically correct, we'll say allegedly. So we got it down there on the screen. But Gaddafi was taken out, right? And Gaddafi was taken out. It's presumed, it's alleged that because he was taken out and became a target, because he was uniting the African nations. First of all, let me back up, because some of y'all don't realize that Africa is a continent. Y'all think it's a country. But no, it's not one country. It's actually a whole continent that is composed of several countries within it. So that's first and foremost. I'm laughing and joking, but I'm also being real at the same time, because there's some people I've talked to and I'm like, wait a minute. We got to take you back to geography class or something. But no, Africa is a continent. It's not a country. It's a continent. But it consists of several countries. Okay? And several beautiful, wonderful countries. And great people. Shout out to my contractors that are in Africa. Thank you guys for your service and your help. But I have to tell you, again, he started to make waves because he started to unite the African nations. The other thing that he was doing that was key, and again, this goes back to all the years of people trying to, get at me about, oh, you always talk about money. And I'm telling you, it's right up there with air and water. The other big thing that he was doing is, while he was uniting these African countries, he also aligned them and had them, in agreement that they were actually going to begin utilizing gold as the standard currency. Okay. And that made some waves. That shook some things up, especially with the Westerners. Okay. With the US, it shook things up. Because you have to understand, if we just examine this for just a moment, let's expand our minds here for a moment. If our currency is the US dollar, it's already losing value. And everyone knows, right? At that time, it was less people talked about it. It was more whispers than anything, but it was a thing that everyone knows. Everyone knows. But yet and still, somehow, again, because perception is everything, you can go around the world and people would still value the US dollar over other currencies, right? And they would prefer that you traded or did business with the US dollar, right? So imagine this person coming in to disrupt the system when we know that the US dollar is losing its value. And then there's whispers that, hey, it really is worthless because it's not worth the money, it's the paper it's printed on. It's not backed by gold anymore, which was the standard in the past. Okay, that's how it was set up with the Federal Reserves in the past. And then we got away from that with all of the debt, and money was just starting to become printed. And it got to a point where more dollars were being printed than there was actual gold to back the dollars that we transfer and trade, right? So in essence, it's almost like we're playing with monopoly money here, right? And so imagine with that going on, right? And I'm sure, again, in political closed doors, they were having worries and conversations about what do we do because we don't want to lose our grounding. We don't want to use our positioning, right, as being the ruler of the world, number one. And now this guy, he's actually uniting several countries in the African nations together that in the past really did not have such a united front. But he's got them all on one accord and an agreement that they are going to begin to trade exclusively with gold. Now, like I mentioned, the US, for instance, we don't have enough gold to back our dollar. Okay. So if we don't have enough gold to back our dollar, then we're a little bit light on the gold. And so we could presume, okay, because we're going to use some logical sense. We could presume that would then cut us out in being able to participate in some of the trade and essentially losing our footing, losing our grounding, losing our recognition as like number one in the world, the go-to, the numero uno, okay? And again, this was because I know people get political and are wound up this year with the politics. When during this time period, this was during the Obama era, okay? So I'm just going to let you think about that. So that means your boy, okay. But like I said, it's alleged that a hit was put on Gaddafi because he was doing too much in their eyes. And he was a threat, and they needed to take him out. So now fast forward, here we are in 2025. This young man in his 30s, I want to say he's like somewhere around 36 or something. I think he was born in 1983 or something like that. Or it could have been 86. Like I said, he's fairly young, especially for all that he's doing. Mr. Ibrahim Traore comes on the scene, right? He actually took over the country. And I'll come back. I'll probably have to do a show on him and how he came into reign, because even that is just fascinating in a story in and of itself. But he takes over this country, this impoverished country that actually was struggling, so rich in its resources and minerals, but had been pillaged for years, for centuries. And so the people there were not benefiting from all the rich resources that they had. And so he actually was able to turn things around in 3 short years. 1, 2, 3. And here we are in 2025. And now you have many of the people working. You have people that have come back home, that went away and they've come back home and started businesses. They just released about 2 or 3 months ago, a big announcement came out with their debut of their electrical vehicle. Because keep in mind, they actually possess the resources that are needed for the electrical vehicles and the batteries. But they produced an electrical vehicle that, again, according to the news outlet, says Tesla needs to take notice. Elon Musk specifically is what the news reports were saying, needs to take notice, because they said it actually rivals the Tesla vehicles. Okay, so they're doing this with their own resources and with their own people, right? He is fixing up the roads, right? This hadn't been done for years, for decades. Okay, getting them paved and modernizing the city. And again, the people there, you can go and you see interviews where people are just taking so much pride in their country. Now, I have to tell you, again, sometimes, there's things that can happen in life. And I think this is a lesson for all of us. Because, like I said, the scripture says that no weapons formed against me shall prosper. God didn't say that the weapons wouldn't come. He just said they wouldn't prosper. And like I said, the weapons for this young man came 18 times, as recent as last month. But with that, it has shown him who stands with him. And see, we're not seeing a lot of this in the news, which is why I want to speak about it, because some of these countries I actually, have some personal, not only knowledge, but ties to. So Cuba was already there working in the country. They had military, they're working. So they didn't have to send military. Their people were already there and said, we're not going nowhere. We're staying here and we're protecting this man because we actually see what he's doing. Then comes Korea. Okay. And so again, like, you're going to notice a trend with these names and these countries that I'm mentioning, because they're kind of the less popular countries, or they're kind of shunned in the media, right? They're not presented with the best light. So, okay, we got Cuba, right? Then we have North Korea, who also, again, recently, there's reports as of 2 days ago that 700 elite North Korean commandos actually were sent over to Burkina Faso. And why? They weren't there because they're on some work mission. No, they had made it plain. They're there specifically to shield this man, Ibrahim Traore, in addition to his people, right? They're not being sent because his people don't believe in him and aren't there to protect him, but they're being sent as reinforcements, as additional security, because of what just transpired. Now, the U.S. is not sending anyone. Actually, the U.S. was part of the coup. Again, we're not seeing a lot of that in the news. That kind of, I stumbled up on that kind of by happenstance. But the U.S. actually was part of the scheme, allegedly, to try to take him out, right? Okay, so now we have allies, Cuba, Korea. And most recently this weekend, President Traore traveled over to where? Another unpopular place and another unpopular leader. He traveled to go meet with Putin in Russia to form a stronger alliance, where Putin has declared, he is aligning with him and partnering to work with him, providing resources, training, more training, because they're already there working with them as allies, providing more training and more resources for their people to be able to get educated in the universities that Russia already has there, to be able to equip them to be in a position to greater build out that country. Now, it's interesting because also, years ago, Putin and Russia, well, I'll say Russia specifically, formed such an alliance with Cuba, right? When everyone was turning their back on Cuba, and Fidel Castro was being presented in the news as this horrible person. And again, he had, I think, a couple hundred actual attempts on his lives. That story is fascinating. I may come back and talk about that. But I learned about that, like, oh my God, like probably like 5 or 6 years ago, like just went down a rabbit hole studying that. And some of it's interesting, the routes and the ways that they attempted to get him. But now we got Russia, right? Which is so interesting. And, again, it's been all over the media, which, I'm sure that the politicians have been watching themselves as well, right? I'm sure that they've been seeing all of the media coverage and things like that. And so all over your YouTubes, all over your Twitters, you can see all these other wonderful podcasters and actual news publications covering this, right? And so it seemed to be a great weekend of allegiance with them. Very respectful and just awesome, right? And so, again, that just makes you kind of wonder what these other leaders may actually be thinking in their mind, right? Because here we go. You've got Cuba, North Korea, and Russia that are being very bold in their support of not only the country, but their support of this man and how they are and have the intention of protecting him. And so, on the other hand, the other thing that we're seeing is that the U.S. has actually come out against Ibrahim Traore and against Burkina Faso, and they're actually, accusing him of fraud. And that just recently happened, okay? And I was going to play actually a little clip, but I'm actually just going to speak to it. And that is so interesting to me because they're accusing him of stealing money from the government. And well, actually, let me back up. They're not accusing him of stealing money. Let's go take it back. They're accusing him of stealing gold, of taking the gold and using it for himself. Now, mind you, when he took office, he and his cabinet, he made them and himself take a 30% cut or reduction in pay, right? Because he wanted to be able to pour those resources back into building up the country and, bringing it to an economic state that could really support the people there. So now some of the media is actually talking about, these things of him basically being crooked, and that he has actually taken, the money and things like that, or not money. I keep calling it money, but it's currency, but that he's taking the gold and using it for himself, right? And for his own agenda, for his personal affairs. And so, again, it just takes me back to those Gaddafi days, right? And again, and as I watched that play out, like I was much younger, and I didn't have the foresight and insight that I have today. And essentially, it was kind of like, I have a friend whose mom has a saying. She says it's the underlay for the overplay, and that's just what it feels like. That's what it really feels like. It feels like they're kind of greasing the skids and like laying the scene to do the same play, to run that play back, right? And I really hope that that is not the case, because I really do. Again, I believe that this young man, this young president, really is making some huge strides for his country. Again, he's making some tough, hard moves and decisions. He's following through on his actions. He seems to be true to his word. Like, he's not throwing things out there and then walking it back just to see what reaction he can get. But his life literally is at stake because of this. And like I mentioned, when he first took over, one of the first things that he did is he kind of got France out of there. And so the relationship between him and Emmanuel Macron, there really is no relationship. Emmanuel Macron has denigrated the people of that country in his speech of them. Because I've seen for myself, right, where he was up speaking, and he basically was saying that they're not human beings, right? Then we know here our history in the U.S. Again, there was the belief and language and laws and things that said that Black people were not human beings, that we were not a man, right? So it's kind of that same white supremacist mindset and way of thinking. And so when you hear him say those kind of things, and to say, he was at a podium, like giving a speech and saying these things. And so for him to have those thoughts and express them, you then begin to understand, and it gives you some insight on how the people were being treated, right? If they were working at some of these companies that were there, or that they were overlooked. And I'll tell you, I travel a lot. I travel to a lot of different countries. And one of the things that I like to do, I like to get out in the culture, right? Because again, you're going to get one experience, and you're going to see what they want you to see, like at the resort and stuff like that. But you really have to talk to the people and get out into the culture. And I oftentimes, when I go somewhere, I want to experience it from the standpoint of I'm evaluating it to see if maybe I want to live there one day, or if I want to have a property there one day later, or even in the near future. And so I want to know the real. And again, sometimes what I will see in some of these countries is, like that just recently happened. I was in the Bahamas in November, and it just got to me, because all of the Bahamians, basically the Black folk, they were in the servant jobs. They were the waiters and things. Now, I went to a restaurant. I guess it's considered upscale here. No, I'll just say it, Nobu. You guys know Nobu restaurant, right? And so I was sitting talking with the young man behind the sushi bar. And again, it's just because, I'm Lamborghini C, I'm also the HR whisperer. And so, the way I look at life, I used to fight it, but the way that I move through the world, the way my vantage point, it's shaped around what I do for a living, right? And so it's just as part of who I am. It's not on me, it's in me, right? And so naturally, oftentimes, some of my questions, or I may have insight from what people say that cause me to ask some deeper questions, right? And it's to see things through a different lens, or to see a little bit deeper than what's on the surface. So as I was talking to this young man, he actually was transferred, because that's another thing. I didn't know that Nobu actually transfers employees. So again, he's a chef, right? So you really can make a career, like a true career out of this. They transferred him from Mexico City, Mexico. And then I looked, at the other people, and they didn't look like Bahamians. It was Asian, like European. Again, like I said, him and someone else that was Latino. And so that stood out to me again through my HR whisperer lens, because I'm like, the person that's serving me, bringing me my drinks and my water and my food, they're Bahamian, obviously. They same complexion as me and everything. But then the chefs are all from other countries. And so the HR&B begins to think, like, is there no way that they could find chefs to hire that were local or train them, put together a training program? Because also the HR&B understood and knew that it was likely, if we think about the hierarchy of these jobs in the restaurant industry, and I've had some clients in the restaurant industry, the chef jobs likely paid more, right, than the servers. So, but you can't even get into the chef role where you would be making more money if you're Bahamian. Is basically what I was witnessing or what I had observed from my conversation, as well as my own conjecture from the data points that I gathered from this young man. And so that's just one example, right? So it's not too far-fetched for me to believe that, yes, with some of these countries that were France or French countries that were doing business over in Burkina Faso, that they were not hiring the locals to do, especially some of the more well-paying, more distinguished jobs. Now, they might have had them in the mines working unsafely, breathing in the toxins and things. Because again, the minerals and things, when you think about those minerals and things that are used to build like the electric vehicles and the batteries for those cars, in their raw state, like as you're unearthing them and digging that stuff up, like I'm sure there's some great health risk to that, you know, and they likely weren't providing them probably protective gear, like in our plants here in the US, like we have OSHA and things like that. Those regulations weren't happening and going on. So it took Ibrahim Traore becoming president and stepping in and seeing what was going on and saying, no, we have to change the standard and actually put some standards and hold these companies to standards. And where they would not cooperate, he moved them out. He even went as far as to move Air France out. He actually kicked Air France out of his country because he said that he had had so many reports and people had so many experiences of being left stranded by Air France. Some African people and Burkina Faso residents. And he, again, I agree, that's highly disrespectful. You could be stranded anywhere in the world, right? And that's what, again, there's accounts of that happening. And so he literally kicked them, he banned them from his country where they can't even fly in there. And within weeks, like by week 2, they were pillaging hundreds of millions of dollars. So it had a great impact on them. Now, you can imagine the tensions are high, right? And there's not a love-hate. It's probably a hate relationship, right? That Macron has for him. Because how dare he stand up for the country? Who's this guy think he is? He's young, a hothead, and he's like doing all these things that are actually having real financial impact, real negative financial impact on them. And so, yeah, he would love to see him put out of office or taken out. But now you see some of the strong forces and some of the some people may call them the boogeymen, 2 in particular, right? North Korea and Russia are actually partnering and backing this guy. That's enough to make you worried or get yourself caught up on a train, which brings me to my next story, okay? Which I think has some synergies. So also what broke this weekend, and it broke on Sunday, on Mother's Day is that Mr. Emmanuel Macron was on the plane. I'm not off the plane. I'm sorry. They were on the train, honey. They were on the train coming back from their visit to the Ukraine, where they've been given Zelensky additional funding and things for the war. And it's alleged that a bag of cocaine was on the table with cocaine paraphernalia. Okay, allegedly. All right, as we could see here, the Republic World was reporting that a cocaine spoon was on the table, as well as a bag of cocaine that Macron quickly picked up and tried to hide and put in his pocket, right? And so I don't know. It's hard to say because, like, I'm not a cocaine connoisseur. So I can't tell you how it's wrapped up. If it's wrapped up in a little envelope or pouch like that. I know many of us have seen, the white baggies and things like that. But I don't know. Now, there are some news articles that are saying that it's been debunked and it's false claims and things like that. But again, the optics of it are not good for these leaders. The fact that they were a little red in some places. Your nose is red like Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. So that didn't help at all either. And you know how the internet, how you guys on the internet are. People were zooming in. They were using AI technology to like dive deeper, to get a closer look, to blow up the picture and doing their own analysis. The internet does not lose when I tell you. Okay. And when I tell you they are like a source of entertainment for real, because as soon as that story hit, it couldn't even get going good, right? And, of course, there was some news article or news publications and things that were trying to debunk it and saying, first they said the video was fake, right? They were saying it was AI and things like that, which we can look and see it was. So again, already now you caught up in a lie. But when I tell you, y'all don't miss on this here internet, oh my goodness, you guys just do not miss, okay? And so, I just don't know what to say. I just don't, because I came across something so funny and I was like, oh my goodness, the internet is crazy and fast. So not only crazy, but also fast, okay, with their reportings. And so before I could even like start researching good and doing my own due diligence, before I knew it, I was starting to see stuff already being posted. And so I'm just going to find and locate it for you guys so I can pull it up. But I think you will find it interesting. Okay. So this is what, I found. And I actually had to reshare because, over the last couple of weeks, myself, I even indulged in the little, the action figurine thing AI technology could do for you. And as you can see, someone did one with Emmanuel Macron, and his accessories are, what, little bags. And you know what that white powder is, so don't even play with it. But yeah, the internet is crazy and fast. And I said, look, y'all don't miss. Y'all do not miss at all. Okay. I can't even argue with that one. But when I tell you, this is crazy to me. And so me, again, being the kind of analyst that I am, an overthinker sometimes too, I can't help but wonder if these things have some relation to each other. Because is Macron shook at that visit to Russia that Traore just did this weekend? Does Ibrahim Traore have him shook that he needed to calm down? He needed to get his nerves under control and needed to use a substance to do that. I don't know. I don't know. Inquiring minds want to know. But I think in this day and age, again, like you have to be so careful, especially if you're in the public eye. Oh my goodness. Like this was just crazy to me. It was crazy and it was careless. Like I just don't even understand how this went down. Like I don't understand like how there was no warning that like all the press was about to just bust through the door. Like this was just crazy, a crazy scenario altogether. But those were the goings on this weekend, guys. So again, while y'all were celebrating Mother's Day, and I hope celebrating your mothers and having a great time and celebrating all the women who have mothered you in your life. Again, it was going down. It was going down in the news. So keep your ear to the ground. If you think that you have to be old and, to be interested in the news, you don't. Like there's so many interesting things. And again, I think we also need to just pay attention to these new alliances and what this is going to do to shape the world, right? Like there will be economic impacts and effects related to this, other relationships. Because again, like, our leader in the US, Trump, thinks he has a really good relationship with Putin. Now, Traore has this relationship with Putin. But also, the US President Trump has tried to get next to Traore, has tried to invite him over to the US and actually recently tried to invite him to visit Saudi Arabia, and he turned him down. Now, this is the second time Trump has tried to extend like a hand or tried to like build some relationship with Traore, and he wants no parts of it. I don't have all the particulars around, and maybe I'll start digging into that, if it's because it's Trump or if it's because it's the US and he's seen in the past, like, how the West has tried to get next to cozy up to like some of the African countries and leaders and then turn their back on them or actually tried to take them out, because it could be that it might not even be like a personal thing, although I know people want it to be like, oh, he doesn't like Trump, but it might not even be like a personal thing. It might be more just he doesn't want to deal with the West like that because he's seen enough history and experienced enough for himself. So that will be interesting. So I'll keep you guys posted if I gather some more additional information around that. But I just wanted to bring that to you. If you are not, like, you need to know your world politics, you need to know what's going on in the world. Yes. There's some funny things that happen on TikTok and Shade Room and all that kind of stuff. But make sure you get some knowledge that actually can impact your life, right? That can impact the trade that's going on around the world. Your travel and things like that. So again, I'm Lamborghini C, and you know what we do. We discuss lifestyle, business, and beauty. And so this is another lifestyle segment because you need to be in the know of what we have going on in this world. Okay. So I am out. Thank you for joining.